613, we're reconvening from closed session. Item E, closed session. Item F, announcement of actions taken in closed session. Maria? There were,
There were no actions taken in closed session.
at this point, item G, comments from the public. The board will take any and all comments from the public related to an item on the agenda or any other item of district business that is not on the agenda. First of all, I have on I-23, request to speak, John Hawk, go ahead.
Good evening, board members. My name is John Hawk. I currently serve on the Hopeville Unified School District and been on the school board for about 10 years now. What I am speaking about is that we do not need to have an extra, we don't need to have a discrimination policy against gender in any school district. And let me show you code from what we pulled up. We've asked our school board and some of our people to run that down. So in Article 1, there's a declaration of purpose, Section 200. It is a policy of the state of California to afford all persons in public schools, regardless of their disability, gender identity, gender expression.
Mr. Hawk,
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Was it? We don't know, I'm sorry. We don't know if you were being recorded, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
You were not being recorded, can you restart?
I could do that. Okay.
I apologize for that.
So very basically, I'm saying that Calexico Unified School District or any school district does not need a secondary discrimination policy about anything from gender or anything like that. So, what I want to do is quote the code that protects all California schools. I am a school board member serving with Hopeville Unified School District. It is the policy of the state of California to afford all persons in public schools, regardless of their disability, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic contained in the definition of hate crimes set forth in Section 422.55 in the Penal Code, equal rights and opportunities in the educational institutions of the state. The purpose of this chapter is to prohibit acts that are contrary to the policy and to provide remedies thereafter. So my point very clearly in mentioning these sections is that you do not need another discrimination policy for sexual orientation or anything of that order. Section 201, all pupils have the rights to participate fully in the educational process, free from discrimination and harassment. All students are already protected fully. Why would you add another one? So I'm, as one school board member to another, I'm just telling you, every student is protected to the fullest. You do not need to add an additional discrimination policy. Let me just read a couple. In Section 212.5, sexual harassment means unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal, visual, physical conduct of a sexual nature made by someone from or in the work of educational setting under any of the following conditions. And it goes on. There's a lot of things. Item C, affecting the conduct of the purpose of or effect of having a negative impact upon the individual's work or academic performance, or of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work on or educational environment. Okay, so basically, regardless of a person's sexual orientation, regardless of if they feel one gender or another, they are protected. There is no need to make another policy. No person, Section 220, no person shall be subjected to discrimination on the basis of disability, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic that is contained in the definition of hate crime set forth in Section 422.55 of the Penal Code. So again, I'm just reiterating a number of things. If there is a violation, for example, if a person feels that they are
Mr. Hawk,
discriminated against, yes,
could you, if you would please wrap it up?
I could wrap it up.
Thank you.
Okay, this spells out a way that a student that feels that way in section 260 spells out their rights to file a complaint with the school board. The governing board of a school district shall have the primary responsibility for ensuring that school district programs and activities are free from discrimination. So it could follow right through yourselves. So as one board member to another, I say no need for I-23. Do not need that policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Okay, number 2 on our list is first name for public comments, Gilbert Campos.
Good evening, board. My name is Gilbert Campos. It's more of a request that I have for the board. I've been trying to meet with Eugenia Diaz. It's an issue that it's a private issue, school related, and I was just wondering if you guys could assist me on helping me with scheduling a meeting with Eugenia.
If you would either try to reach her again, and if you don't get any results, our superintendent will be more than happy to assist you as long as you come in and talk to her.
Mrs. Eugenia Diaz's supervisor is in the last row. Mrs. Ramirez, she could
Okay.
assist
There
you
we
right
go.
now.
Okay,
There
thank
we
you.
go. Thank you. Mr. Campos, thank you. Okay, item, person number 3 on item I-23 is Marlene Thomas. Yes. It is I-23.
Well, Marlene Thomas, El Centro, California. I'm here in favor of the anti-discrimination resolution.
Would you please state your name?
Marlene Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to look at it from a different perspective. The one thing that I just heard was a code, and it was very clear to me in this code that most of us, if not all of us, was unfamiliar with this particular code that was just read. And if I'm not mistaken, they said they had to look it up. So that means if you have to look it up, it's not really up there in view for people to really know that there is equal protection. So therefore, there might be a reason why you may need the resolution. But let me say this real quickly. I am a native of Calexico, and I've seen a lot of discrimination in my life. And most of the discrimination that I've seen has been towards the Mexican population growing up here in Calexico. From even in the school system, language, couldn't speak Spanish in the playgrounds or in the classroom. If you spoke Spanish, you either get paddled or you draw a circle on the board, and you were discriminated against because of your language. So there are many ways of discrimination, and the bottom line is that discrimination of any kind should not be tolerated. It's not about if we agree or not agree. It's discrimination is zero tolerance. And you as a school board, you have also an opportunity to really maybe extract some of these things that were just said, but make it part of that resolution or included in the resolution where it's very clear where the policy and the information gets out to all of the people. Because right now it's buried in bureaucracy. And we all know that rules are rules. They can be changed, they can be bended, and et cetera. And that's basically all I want to say. I'm definitely in support of this. And I ask you to, what was interesting, I was looking at your agenda, everything said approval, but when it got to the resolution on anti-discrimination, it said consideration. Come on, we can't, that's not tolerable. You cannot tolerate any type of discrimination. And I say that as an African American, and I say that as a female, and I say that as just a human being. It cannot be tolerated, and it's not up to us to prejudge or make judgment. But it's up to the school to provide a safe environment for everyone. Okay, so that's it. And I hope that you do put it in a form of a resolution and make it very clear from the top all the way to the bottom because anything on paper is just what it is. It's on paper, and we all know that. So I'm just saying we need to send. You need to send out a message that no discrimination is tolerable, and we all have that history in terms of our background and our culture. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Number 4 on our list is on item I-23, Raul Ureña.
We're going to reserve our comments for when the item comes up.
Okay.
And I do have one for H1, so I will be speaking on H1.
Okay. The next on the agenda is for I-23 is Lisa Solomon.
Reserving my time until it comes up on the agenda.
Thank you. Again, item 6, person number 6 is on I-23 is Victoria Medina.
I will save mine when it comes up at that time as well.
Thank you. I need to redo them then. Okay, like this, like this, like this. Yeah, like this. Number 7 on our list is on item H1. Ramirez? Mark, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Mark Ramirez. Mark Ramirez.
Good evening. My name is Mark Ramirez. I'm going to talk about the July 23rd's minutes and the background surrounding those minutes. On the meeting of June 25th, your silence as elected officials on an anti-discrimination resolution intended to give all students at your school a tool to address the discrimination happening in your school. I previously have already presented to you the data from the California Healthy Kids Survey, where up to 30% of students in your school, grades 7 through 12, reported being bullied or harassed. All of you here were elected to serve your students. As a California registered nurse and a patient advocate, I was horrified to know you were silent on an item intended to empower your students. Whether or not at other schools there already exists code to protect your students, it was not even given the opportunity to discuss whether this resolution would be a duplicate to that. You are entrusted to be your students' advocates. This anti-discrimination resolution died on this board table, and a second motion to even discuss it was not given. I was further horrified when I read in July 23rd's minutes where Mr. Ciro Calderon discussed with Ms. Leti Zuno that an anti-discrimination resolution was a waste of time. I humbly ask that history not repeat itself and this resolution get a second motion for you to vote yes or no. And the students you were elected and trusted to serve and advocate for deserve at least an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. And last but not least, on item I-23, Adria Lopez.
I will reserve my comments for when that.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, so we are on item G, public comments, and item H, consent agenda. All items are be acted upon one motion without discussion. Is there a motion to approve item H, consent agenda?
Mr. Calderon, I have comments for H1. I'm not sure if you could table that and then vote on it later.
If you have comments, you have to present them right now. We have comments on it, on any, oh, is that what it is? Okay. Well, because you put two H1 and I-23.
And I-23,
so,
right.
okay. So you're gonna be speaking on H1?
H1 and then I'll do H23
Yes,
later.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raul Ureña, Calexico graduate. I have a couple comments to make in regard to the minutes and specifically Robert's Rules of Order and the implications of what was written in these minutes. So if we go to page 1, where item A1 was voted on, we see that there's an interesting exchange between Ms. Zuno and Mr. Calderon. And to backtrack a bit of background with this, on the, like Mr. Ramirez said, on the meeting of June 25th,
3 gentlemen on the board willingly refused to second any motion, thereby refusing to have any debate on the issue of anti-discrimination. Let's imagine for a second that instead of being in a boardroom with your staff or with your administrators, your plush boardroom, that you were facing every single one of the students you represented. And among these students were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer students. Some students with disabilities, students of all colors, students of all religions. What message do we send? What message do you send when you're shutting down debate on discrimination? When you're resigning yourself to silence without taking any position? What do you tell them when you're asked what you, Lorenzo, what you, Eric, what you, Ciro, Priscilla, and Letty, have done to protect our environment, our safety, and our pride with those actions? And to go back to those minutes, the specifics of that exchange, Trustee Zuno had motion to table 2 items, I-5, the anti-discrimination resolution, and I-16, something else. When the meeting was opened, Trustee Calderon was the first one to come up and steadfastly say, why is item I-5 being brought back? Trustee Zuno responded, members of the community asked to bring it back. After that, Mr. Calderon said that he would like to see some guidelines, some procedures, and assumably some barriers to this. My question is why? Why? The first infraction was when we refused to have debate. Why did we double down on that? Hopefully I can get some answers to this. Thank you.
And you know what? And I will give you answers to that. If you would like to stay on the podium, please.
Yes, please.
And I'm asking you, and I'm not telling you.
Okay.
We have set guidelines to when we submit items to our president to be put on the agenda. Okay, and I will go back to when Mr. Kress was here. Mr. Kress sent a couple of those items to the president, and they were denied on the fact that they were done after the fact. She had set up a very specific, what would you call
Agenda?
it? Cutoff.
Okay.
Cutoff. Myself and Mr. Ortega had gone to that agenda review. That's what we call to prepare the agenda, and we had set up the agenda. We didn't know about any more issues, and a day later, violating the same guidelines that she had set up, she went and used her power to get this on the agenda. Okay.
Excellent. And I assume that's why you refused to second in the first place, shutting down debate before all of that.
And again, she did it again for this meeting. Okay.
Understood.
Now, I'll reserve my comments. Thank you. We are on item H. Anybody else? Item H, right? Anybody else? Okay, so again, item H, consent agenda. All items appearing will be acted upon by one motion without discussion. Is there a motion?
Motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon.
Second.
Is there second by Ms. Real. If there's no further comment, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously, 3-0. Voting in favor are Ms. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I, in actions, information items. I1, superintendent, letter I, number 1, superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, trustees and community, and welcome back to our almost starting school year. We will have our first day of school on August 24th, I believe, on Monday, August 24th. Currently, right now, we are still enrolling students. But as of this afternoon, we have about 9,044 students already enrolled in our district, according to our information system, and we are still enrolling new students at all of our schools. Enrollment is closed at many of our schools, particularly at Cesar Chavez Elementary and Enrique Camarena. Those schools are already at capacity, and students enrolling in that school at this point for the first time are being recommended to alternative schools within our district. Calexico High School also has a high enrollment number, already exceeding 3,100 students. We are looking at the feasibility of moving a couple of the empty relocatable classrooms at the old adult ed facility adjacent to Blanche Charles Elementary to Calexico High School to be used as office space, such as attendance, discipline, and registrar, for example, so that we can reclaim some of the permanent classrooms that are being used as offices right now. And if needed, we may need to move some of the empty relocatables that we have at that site to other Calexico High School areas and other school sites as classroom space as well. So, I mean, it's probably not an impossibility that we may end up having to move trailers even into Enrique Camarena. We are still hiring for a couple of teaching positions, and we have had some recent resignations because of people moving out of the area. And so if we know of any math teachers out there, science teachers, we will take any and all recommendations. Centennial football, 100 years of Bulldog football will be celebrated at the Willis Ward game this year, which will be held on September 11th, 2015. We hope all of you plan to join us at the celebration on that day. And at our next board meeting, Mr. Mike Charles, who has been one of the leaders of this celebration, and Mr. John Moreno will make a brief presentation to the board regarding all the activities that will be taking place for Centennial football. We just had a 2-day leadership retreat at Calexico High School's library, which was Monday and Tuesday, August 10th and 11th. Had 2 days filled of learning and camaraderie and leadership. And Mrs. Colunga, our director of curriculum, organized our team spirit so well that our district administrative team then reported to AXA's administrative kickoff that was held at Brawley Elementary, and this is a county-wide event. And I'm happy to report that Ms. Colunga's efforts were very fruitful, as our own John Moreno won the Most Spirited Administrator Award, and yes, he did, and our team won the Most Spirited Administrative Team Award. And then your superintendent won the 50-50 raffle. So I took home $750 that will help with my daughter's Fullerton tuition. None of it is for me. And just a reminder that CUSD was and is the winning team. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Item I2, association comments by order of the alphabet. ACT. Anybody representing ACT? No? No. Okay. CSEA? Anybody representing CSEA? No. Okay. Item I3, project lead, 5th grade presentation. Oh, what is that?
Good evening. My name is Deborah Owen. You guys can come over here. I am the Assistant District Attorney in the Imperial County DA's office. And with me tonight, I'd like to introduce first Susana Salgado, who's a Senior Deputy District Attorney in our office, which means she supervises. And she's also a Calexico High School graduate, went to school in Calexico. She's involved in this project. Joe Guzman is a Deputy District Attorney in our office, and as we'll explain later, he is the attorney that's assigned to this project. Carl Armstrong is one of our investigators in the DA's office. He's also assigned to this project. And when I say this project, I have to thank you for allowing us to come talk to you about something that in our office is very important to us. If you follow anything that's happening in the criminal justice system over the last couple of years, you know that there's been a lot of changes. There's an emphasis on providing services. Many of those services are for offenders. So as we sit and talk about this in our community, the district attorney, Mr. Otero, decided that we needed to put emphasis not just on providing services for people who've already become an offender, but trying to do something before people have become an offender, before they've committed a crime. And the way that we thought that we could do that in our office, in our small community, with the limited resources that we had, was to try to work with the schools and talk to kids before they ever get involved in the juvenile justice system. So what we're here to talk to you about tonight is a collaboration which is Project LEAD. Now, I wish that we could take credit for that name, but we can't. We borrowed it from Los Angeles County. And what it is this is a collaboration between our office, the Imperial County Office of Education, Brawley Elementary School District, and Calexico School District. And I want to begin by just showing you a picture of a child that was not a participant in Project LEAD because he was too young, but he happens to be one of the sons of one of our investigators. But that smile, I think, really exemplifies the attitude of the students that participate in Project LEAD. So I just threw it up there because I think it's a cute picture, and we used him on our brochures. But what brought us here today is that there is a Justice Assistance Grant, which we call the JAG grant. And what it is this was the primary provider of federal criminal justice funding. And prior to this last fiscal year, what it funded in Imperial County was law enforcement efforts with regard to drug crime. And that's what it had been done and used for several years. I mean, going on 20 years. Well, as we developed and as we changed and as the criminal justice system changed, California developed a multi-year strategy and identified 3 program purpose areas. And those were prevention and education, law enforcement, prosecution, courts, and defense. And so what we did in Imperial County is establish a JAG steering committee. This was prior to us applying for a competitive grant. And the steering committee is made up of the District Attorney's Office, Social Services, the Imperial County Office of Education, Turning Point Ministries, IVROP, the Probation Department, the county's CEO, Ralph Cordova's office, the Brawley Elementary School District, and the Calexico Unified School District. Now, the reason that we selected ICOE and Brawley Elementary and Calexico was that we wanted to do a 2-prong approach with the age groups. We wanted to focus on high school students through alternative education and 5th grade students through another curriculum. And based upon the demographics and the larger school districts and based upon the type of cases that are referred to our office, we reached out to Brawley Elementary School District and to Calexico Unified to inquire as to whether they would be agreeable to working with us, and they were. So we then took what was Project LEAD, and we had done, if you've read the papers, we had started Project LEAD last year by going into 5th grade classrooms at Imperial School. We did both Ben Hulse and T.L. Wagner, and we did Phil Swing's school in Brawley. And attorneys and investigators from the district attorney's office went into the classroom. And so I included a couple pictures of us in the classroom. We went in once a week for 20 weeks through that program. What it is LEAD stands for Legal Enrichment and Decision Making. Its focus is on education and prevention, and it's focused on that law enforcement purpose area contained in the JAG grant. We were awarded the grant, which is $220,000 a year for 3 years. It is funding 1 full-time deputy district attorney, 1 full-time district attorney investigator. 3/4 of the investigator's funding is paid for through the grant. 1/4 is funded by ICOE. And the project partners then are ICOE, Brawley Elementary, Calexico, and the DA's office. And the goal of what we're trying to do is to decrease the incidence of school violence, decrease the incidence of substance abuse, decrease truancy, and decrease gang activity. And the way that we want to do that is by, at Alternative Ed, utilizing a curriculum that is called Positive Action. And in Calexico and Brawley, in 5th grade classrooms, we will be utilizing the Project Lead curriculum. We also intend to conduct quarterly presentations to parents on issues that will be covered in the curriculum. What this curriculum does is it discusses constitutional principles, it teaches techniques for resolving conflict and resisting peer pressure, it stresses the importance of education, and I also included here the Project Lead website that provides additional information for that. The focus on the legal and social consequences of juvenile crime is important, hitting those areas that cause juveniles the most trouble when it comes to crime. Truancy obviously is one of those areas, but the other area is vandalism and theft are the big ones that we see in our office that causes the most trouble for juveniles. Now, it's important, as you know, as educators, to be evidence-based. And the Project Lead curriculum is evidence-based. The Constitutional Rights Foundation, which is the organization that is involved in areas with education, most notably the Constitutional Rights Foundation in California is the organization that sponsors the mock trial program. So it has a history of working with the educational community. They conducted an evaluation of Project Lead and found that the program provides protective factors that decrease students' propensity to become involved in crime. It increased the students' knowledge about the legal system, and it also increased positive dispositions, which meant that students that had been through the program ended up having more positive viewpoints about authority. And the reason that's important for students is because it does allow them to make better choices and understand that education is essential in making those choices. So the practices involve interactive instruction, an opportunity to discuss issues, develop relationships with legal professionals, provide techniques for refusal skills, how to avoid getting involved in situations, common situations, what to do when people try to encourage you to ditch school, participation in decision making, and situation and role play. The topics focus on critical thinking, analytical reasoning, and public speaking. We begin the whole entire program with a law book, and I brought copies that you can distribute. So the students begin basically with an introduction in constitutional law, which will form the background of what we'll be talking about throughout the year. The lessons are very easy. The teachers don't have to do anything. We will be sending investigators and attorneys to teach the lessons. Now, when I say the teachers don't have to do anything, I mean they do have to be there. We don't want the attorneys and the investigators left in a classroom. This is not designed to have something that the kids are tested on, and that's essential. It's very important to understand this. It's an hour lesson, And we want the kids to be able to discuss things and to ask questions, but it is not designed to have, be tested on. We don't want that sort of test stress to interfere with the exchange of ideas. When we talk about critical thinking and analytical reasoning, we talk about the punishment for crime and how and why juveniles may be treated differently than adults. How and why a juvenile who has been in trouble before may be treated differently than a juvenile who has not. And understanding and being able to look at the law and apply those principles. So the way that we're going to do that is you look at the classes. We will have a 15-week curriculum that begins with an introduction, goes over, and the next lesson will be an overview of the criminal justice system. We'll then cover criminal statutes and their consequences, an overview of juvenile proceedings, sentencing options for juvenile offenders, the consequences of truancy, options for dealing with bullies. It will cover gangs, a lesson on refusal skills, a lesson on prejudice and discrimination, a lesson on conflict resolution and problem solving, then theft and vandalism, substance abuse, which includes presentations, pictures on the effects just visibly, aesthetically, on how you look after you've used drugs. And we end with what, as attorneys, we get the most excited about, and sometimes, I'm warning you, we get a little competitive at this stage, because we end with a mock trial presentation. And the kids are given a fact pattern, roles are assigned, and the kids do the entire thing on their own. The kids are the judge, the bailiff, the defense attorneys, the prosecutors, the jury, and they do that. And when I say I warn you, even our investigators, we are a little type A. And so we have one mock trial preparation there, but I have a confession to make. I probably did 4 practices with my class last year when I taught it because I wanted to be the best. And the kids were amazing that did this. Now, they had their questions done. They had them prepared. But for those of you who have ever seen a trial, you know that something may come up in a trial. And these kids were able to deal with it. They were able to listen to what was happening and then form their own questions right when it was happening. That's the type of critical thinking, analytical reasoning that we think is important. Being able to take facts and apply them to law. Those are things that we believe as lawyers and investigators, that those sorts of skills will help kids later. Not only help them make better decisions, but also help them when they're having to analyze something, when they're having to solve problems. So that's the curriculum that we're covering on that schedule. The way that we plan to do this, the Brawley schedule will be September 4th beginning, ending December 17th, taking into account holidays. Then we'll pick up in January with the second set of schools going through April. The Calexico schedule, the first day will be September 2nd, the last day being December 17th for the first semester, and that accounts for the holidays. January 6th through April 21st. In Calexico, the attorney and investigator will be here on Wednesdays. Brawley will be on Fridays, and alternative ed are Monday and Tuesdays, with Thursday kept open in case there is follow-up that needs to be done in any of the schools. We intend to measure the outcomes by a pre- and post-student assessment, and then data collection on truancy, school violence, and substance abuse. We are excited about the program. It is new, it's something that is innovative, but it's something that we feel strongly about in terms of investing this sort of, making this investment in our kids. Because we believe that if we can prevent kids from ever being offenders, we'd love it if we were out of work. I love my job. I think that we try to do well by the community. But if all of us were out of work because there was no crime, we would gladly go find another job. So we're excited about this opportunity to collaborate with your district, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the issue, on the project.
What is the success rate, or not the success rate, but how did it, for the lack of better words, how did it go in LA Unified?
LA Unified's been doing it for about 20 years. They're the ones that report the positive outcomes and a reduction in truancy. So they state that it went well. They were most impressed with the positive outcomes in terms of how kids felt about law enforcement. Obviously, you're dealing with a different sort of environment in LA. It's a much larger area, and their incidence of school violence is much higher than ours. But they report that it's done well.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
When does your program start? You said
It'll start. We're doing training next week in Calexico, September 2nd.
September 2nd.
It will be 8:30 in the morning on those Wednesdays, and every week that there isn't a holiday. What will happen is Joe Guzman will be coming down with a group of investigators, and they'll do all the classes at one time.
Now my question is, who's Mr. Guzman? Okay.
He's an attorney.
Oh, you're not packing? But you're not. Okay. Okay.
That's why we have Carl.
Oh, okay. So my question is, when you guys come and do the training, you're the lawyer, but is there gonna be somebody representing the law enforcement side with guns?
That's going to be coming with Mr. Guzman will consist of investigators and investigative assistants
Uh-huh.
for the most part. If they're unavailable, then I would imagine the attorney could fill in. But
Okay.
there'll always be law enforcement representative to the class.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't. I need to rephrase my question.
You want to know how many guns are going to come down?
Well, are our kids going to see the real side of law enforcement? In this case, are they gonna see? They're gonna see the law side, but are they gonna see the real side, the positive and the negative? Which is, you might be arrested if you do this, if consequences.
Yeah.
Are they gonna be exposed to that?
Well, yes, probably not as bluntly as you're putting it, but yes, but it's the reality of juvenile crime, the consequences of juvenile crime. And the consequences being you could be on probation, or you could be put in a group home. So yes, given the consequences, but it isn't, and we need to be clear, it's not a scared straight sort of thing. We're really trying to get kids to understand that the decision I make now can affect what I do later, affect how I get a job. Really focusing on education. So the role playing that we have, there are many like little plays that the kids will act out and then be allowed to expand on. So you see, one of the lessons that we will work with the teachers on doing is one, talking about education and budgeting, and how education can get you a better job than allows you to buy the things that you want. What happens when you steal and how that can affect you getting a job later. If you lie on something little, people may not believe you later when you need them to believe you. It isn't designed to scare them. It's designed to educate them about consequences, letting them know that the fact is that the consequences are going to follow you. But we've never had the question about whether they carry guns, and they go in just like they're normally with their gun.
My point being, I would like for my students to see the real side. They see CSI and all those shows, but those shows do not portray the real side of what really happens. So that was my point. I wanted to be exposed. Of course, it's going to be mostly positive, but I wanted to know that if you do this is what's going to happen. Like you said, positive and negative.
Right, but it's really important to understand the juvenile crime, that the juvenile system is designed for rehabilitation. I'm stating a fact. I don't know that I agree with it, And as prosecutors, sometimes I think we agree with the public that maybe people should be punished more. What the focus of this is trying to get them cognitively to understand. And I think that it's factual and it is the real side. But if we really tell juveniles, I mean, a juvenile can mess up a lot of times before they're going to get in a group home. That's the fact of it. Nowadays, the reality of crime in general is you have to mess up a lot before you're going to jail. We're not going to be standing up and saying to kids, based upon realignment in the criminal justice system, you're going to have to mess up a lot before you go to jail. Because we don't want them to make the decision to mess up even if it's a lie. We don't want them to think, oh, I can sleep in today, no big deal. We want them to understand, apart from going to jail, the decision that they make, whether they take an active role in their education, whether they go to school, is going to develop habits and make an understanding so they're able to get a job. Because, I mean, I think most of us would agree when you look at the research, the thing that gets someone fired the most, other than stealing something, is being late to work. So kids need to understand, if I make this habit now and I'm late to school, then it's not going to be easy to be on time. And that's the kind of thing that we're focusing on. And it sometimes is difficult for us because we're not educators. We're used to going for the jugular and trying to prosecute somebody in a fair way. But our job has not always been this sort of education. We believe that this is part of our job, and it's something that we need to do. And so that's why it's a new area. It's a new area for a lot of places, but we think it's important.
So, well, I'm glad that you clarify that. So to me, it means that our kids are going to see mostly the positive side of doing the right thing. I guess that's the idea that you're portraying to me, that they're going to see that if they make good choices, this is what's going to happen. So, right? That's the message you want to convey to them. That's what I get.
Right.
Yes.
But yes, I guess, is that a fair statement? I think it is. I guess, I think that it's we try to present it fairly. So it's not going to be presented, this is just the good side. I don't know the bad side about doing the right thing, other than your friends may not talk to you. It's much more of you can see I'm not answering the question. This dialogue that we're having is the same sort of dialogue kids will have. And we want them to be able to share that. Like, I don't feel comfortable standing up for somebody when they're getting beat up or they're getting made fun of. We want kids to be able to share that thought, so then we can talk about why it's important to stand up for somebody else.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Questions from the public?
I have no further.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. That was I3. Item I4 is status of the wireless network.
And Mr. Padilla will be making a brief presentation along with Mr. Perez.
Good evening. Good evening. Lucio Padilla, Director of Instructional Technology. Good evening.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was conveying a
No, that's
message.
okay. I'm trying to get the audio here to work.
Okay.
It's on, but
Okay. Speak a little louder.
yeah.
I'm here with Eduardo Perez, our coordinator of information technology. We're here to make a presentation on our wireless network, and we're going to review this through the lens. Make a minor adjustment here. We're going to review this through the lens of exploring the possibility of having a bring your own device program for our school district. There we go. And as we look, from here on out, we'll refer to Bring Your Own Device as a BYOD program. And so while we look at this, we'll look at it as explaining why this would be a worthwhile investment, something to look into. We're going to review our infrastructure, which means the physical and organizational structure for us to provide internet connectivity throughout our district. We're going to make some recommendations for some policy updates, and then some recommendations for planning for implementation. So as we look as to why have a BYOD program, definitely it promotes anytime, anywhere learning. It fosters a collaborative learning environment for our students. It provides a safe environment for our students. So students participating in a BYOD program will be in a secure network just much as any district-funded computer. Again, it'll be a secure network going through our content filters, which means it meets the Child Internet Protection Act compliance. It would give us the opportunity to reinforce our acceptable use policy. It will help to meet the needs of our millennial learners. We know that our millennial learners are social and collaborative. They're impatient and immediate learners. They are experiential and exploratory learners. And this will help to facilitate providing a dynamic content and collaboration tools to engage our students. It is also the responsible thing to do. We know that unless we ban cell phones from our district, the reality is that our students are connected. However, having that access to the cell phone does not allow for us to have them in a secure network, which has our content filtered applied to them, and doesn't allow us to, again, to have that opportunity to reinforce our acceptable use policies. We know that participating in college and most careers require the use of your personal device, so this provides them an environment where they're being placed in a college and career readiness environment. This next graph here is going to simplify our wireless connection speed. It's a little bit more complicated than what we're going to show you, but it's meant to make it real simple to understand. We have our connection speed. We receive a 1,000 megabits connection speed from the Imperial County Office of Education. It arrives and connects here at our district office. Our district office then connects through that same type of speed, a 1,000 megabit connection speed, and at this point, it is reflective of the schools shown there, because we're in the middle of a 2-year upgrade to our wireless network. The schools that are there still have the old network. The rest of the schools are now currently in our newer updated network. Under the schools right now, they then go from a 1,000 megabit connection to a 100 megabit connection to an access point. Those access points then connect one each. So making a highlight there of those access points, they connect one per every 2 classrooms, and they have the ability to connect up to 15 devices and at a speed of 54 megabits per second. So our connection speed started at 1,000 from the county. By the time it got to our students, maximum connection speed is 54 megabits per second. Our new network, which has already began last year for the schools reflected there in our schedule for this year for the remaining schools, again, have a 1,000 megabit connection from the county, then has a 1,000 megabit connection to our schools, continues to have a 1,000 megabit connection to our access point. These access points now are located 1 per classroom, and they can hold up to 50 devices per, and maintain that 1,000 megabit consistent connection all throughout, all the way through the county up to the end user. This huge upgrade, and obviously, and I hope you'll be able to see it, it's just a tremendous increase in speed, has come at a cost of $1.1 million for our district, which has been funded through LCAP and through E-rate. And again, we're in the middle of that 2-year process for the entire district being upgraded. Any questions so far? I'm sorry, maybe got a little bit technical, so I want to make sure that part was good. No, we're good. We're going to do a little review of our history of devices on our network. Beginning with November of 2011, we had 600 devices on our network. A year later, in November of 2012, we had 650 devices. By November of 2013, we had about, I believe it's 1,300 devices. A year after that, we had 1,700 devices in our network. By May of 15, just a few months ago, we had an increase then to 2,600 devices on our wireless network. There's a lot of devices that arrived late in the school year last year. They already are in our campuses. They haven't been connected to our network. We're going to have Rockwood receiving their one-to-one iPad pilot program this year. In anticipation of additional devices that are scheduled to be purchased this year, we're anticipating, at a very safe anticipation, that we'll have 5,700 devices on our network by as early as November of this school year. And I want to make that an emphasis on wireless connection. This is not counting computers that are connected through a hardwire. These are just our wireless devices. And then obviously it's a face assumption that the new Common Core state standards and the state testing through computers contributed to a huge factor of this huge increase of devices in our school district. We'll come back to that graph in a bit. So we talked about speed a little bit in terms of speed to the end user. We're not going to talk about bandwidth. And an easy way to explain bandwidth is the internet speed. And another way to explain it is the capacity for our devices. So how many devices simultaneously accessing the internet can our network hold? When you think of speed, don't think of it as speed in the traditional sense. For example, it's not like a car that could drive 55 miles an hour and another one's 65 miles an hour. Think of it more as it contributes to your allocated bandwidth. This means the amount of data that can be sent, measured in seconds through our network. So as an example, if you want to transfer through the internet a file that is 5 megabits, and so MBS makes a reference to megabits per second. Getting a little technical here, so if you have any questions, please let me know. And to make it simple, we're going to use an analogy. We're going to look at bandwidth like if it's a freeway. Important to note, in this freeway, all cars, that is all data, travels at the same speed. And so we have our car there, we have our data traveling at the same speed. And so to move this data from your computer to the internet faster, your freeway, that is your bandwidth, needs to be wider. Let's look at 1 megabit bandwidth. If we had a 1 megabit bandwidth, that'd be equal to having a 1-lane freeway. Therefore, if we wanted to download a file, an image that was 5 megabits in size, it would take, in a 1 megabit bandwidth, 5 seconds to travel through the internet to give you that connection, that data that you need. So that's 5 megabits in a 1 megabit bandwidth would take you 5 seconds. However, if you have a 5 megabit bandwidth, to transport that same image would take you 1 second. Therefore, the wider your freeway, the wider your bandwidth, the faster that the data travels through our network system to give you access to the internet. So looking at network capacity, again, looking at our bandwidth, from our county office, we receive a 1 gigabyte fiber optic cable. So think of it in terms of now looking at something that's real. It's as if we had a 1,000 lane freeway. Once that, and the county provides that, that's what they have as part of what they provide. From there on that point, it's our responsibility to provide the network to our students. So once that cable is at our district, we then provide that same 1 gigabit fiber optic cable to all our campuses in our district. Again, maintaining that 1,000 lane freeway. That is current right now. The county realizes that this bandwidth isn't going to be sufficient. So the county is currently working on upgrading that fiber optic cable to a 10 gigabit fiber optic cable. What that would then equate to a 10,000 lane freeway. We are anticipating that the county will provide that connection to our district sometime in the 2015-2016 school year. We have already in our plans, it's already written within the plans for next year within our LCAP to then move and continue that upgrade from our district to our schools to provide that same 10,000 lane freeway, if you will, the 10 gigabit fiber optic cable to all of our school campuses. So how many bring your own devices can we add before the upgrade? Obviously, when you think in terms of having a 10 gigabit fiber optic cable, really we could probably provide a BYOD program to all of our students in our district. But until then, really, we kind of have to be a little bit cautious because as you'll see here, when we last monitored in May our network capacity, having 2,600 devices on our district, our percentage of usage of our bandwidth was between 25 to 40% of our capacity. If you look at this graph, anticipating that soon in this school year, we potentially could have 5,700 devices, we're predicting that that'll take usage of anywhere between 50 to 80% of our capacity. Understand that this fluctuates. So if we have 2,000 students just browsing the internet for research, it's not going to take as much capacity as if the President of the United States is having an important news conference and classrooms across the district are participating and are streaming video, then that's utilizing way more of our bandwidth. So it depends on what is being used at the time simultaneously by different users. Our recommendation right now is that if we move forward with the BYU program, and I think we should, that we move in a pilot between 500 to 1,000 devices at a time. Begin with a small pilot. This would require the update of our board policy 6163.4 regarding the student use of technology. It would require an update to our acceptable use policy. It could potentially require an update to our board policy 3320, which is claims and actions against the district. And I would further recommend that we explore an optional insurance coverage for our parents who have their students participating in a BYOD program in our district. Planning for implementation. Again, we would recommend to phase in 500 to 1,000 devices at a time. The reason for it, again, once more, is because of our capacity. We want to take it in steps, be able to monitor our bandwidth and make sure that we're being successful before we phase in any additional participants, if at all possible. We would recommend that this process be through a registration process. We would recommend that it be a parent-student orientation. As an example, this would be a 2-hour course on digital citizenship with parents participating with their children wishing to participate. This would include rules, release of liability forms, a limit to 1 concurrent device access, which means that we have within our network the ability that a child can have their cell phone on our network, can have an iPad on their network, but they can only choose to have one at a time. They would have to log off from one to be able to use the other device. And then obviously we would have no access during testing, because during state testing we would want to have the maximum bandwidth available for state testing. I know that there was an interest, it's my understanding there was an interest to have a strong signal strength within the halls of our school and within our quad areas of our school. Right now, we don't have the equipment to measure. We know that the signal goes beyond the classroom walls. We don't know how far it extends. There is equipment that exists that would help us be able to evaluate signal strengths in different areas of any of our school campuses. Would recommend training for our IT staff on the efficiency of our wireless network. We would recommend this whether we went with our BYD or not. I think it's just good practices since we made a huge investment in our wireless network, that we receive training and be able to make the most efficient use of our wireless network. And then probably one of the toughest parts would be the selection of participants. Taking that recommendation of 500 to 1,000 students, a phase-in program, different options to consider would be, do we pilot in one school? Do we allocate 50 to 100 students per school? Do we pilot with volunteer teachers who say, you know what, I want to have a one-to-one program and interested in piloting a BYD program in my classroom? And so just things to consider, food for thought as we move forward and continue to explore this. Is there any questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. These. Okay, I-5 updates. Pool update. No.
There's no update at this time.
No item at this time, okay. IVROP update, Mr. Calderon Jr.
I have no update as we have not had any meetings. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 20th of this month. I'll report then. I had reported the previous meeting on our last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Insurance Committee? No, nothing to report.
No update at this time.
Not- Safety Committee?
No update at this time, and no update for the LCAP committee
And
either.
no update for the outcome. Okay, thank you, Madam President, Superintendent. I6, accounts payable pre-list. This is for information. All right. Do you guys have any questions
have
on the
no
payout, on the
questions.
accounts payable?
No.
Thank you. I7, board reports. These are informational reports by board members. No action is taken. Ms. Real? Anything that you need to report or, and for now?
No, nothing to report.
Thank you, Ms. Real. Mr. Calderon Jr.?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take this time to welcome everyone back. I hope you guys had a good vacation because it's a new year and hopefully we can make it better than last year. Again, we have most of our administrators here and thanks for being here and being part of this team. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And I just want to share that I went to a couple of schools while for registration, and everything that I saw was really up to par with what we need to do. I went to the high school this morning. Mrs. Williams had the system down to the point where it was working flawlessly. I stopped by Rockwood and I saw Dr. Lanusa. It was great to see your anecdotes. You always have something to say, so it was really nice to hear your stories. Pretty much it is nice. It is nice to see what's happening at the schools. It is nice to see what's happening with maintenance. We are still waiting for those cars and those vans, and hopefully they will come. Okay, but they're on their way. Hopefully they're on their way. So other than that, I don't have anything else.
I do have one more.
Go ahead, Mr. Calderon Jr.
I'd like to just mention that on several of our sites, we had summer school. We offer summer school to our students. And I'd like to see if we can offer additional help so these individuals that are in those schools can get these schools ready for our kids. We had several sites that had summer school. The other schools are ready to go. However, the ones that hosted the summer school need a little help. So I'd like to see them get help, so come next week or whenever the first day, they're ready to go. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon Jr. Okay, so that's it for I7 board reports. Item I8, discussion on board policy 9322, agendas and meeting materials. This was brought up by Board President Zuno, but unfortunately she's not here. Madam Superintendent, do you have an update on that, or do you know what this is all about?
I believe that this item is brought to the board to discuss Board Policy 9322 with regards to questions that have been raised a number of times in the past few weeks regarding the agenda content, how the agenda is prepared, consent items, and how the agenda is disseminated to board members and to members of the public. I think it's part of the discussion was to start the discussion in regards to accepting a parliamentary procedure that is established by the board as the official parliamentary procedure, i.e. like Robert's Rules of Order. But for example, this is how the agenda is set as per Board Policy 9322. And I know that she wanted to speak more at length about this, so I don't know if this is something you wish to table until
I
further
would recommend that we
further
table
moment.
since she is not here.
You know.
And that way she can give us her
Would you
info.
like to put it on a motion?
Yes, I motion to table this item.
I second.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. to table this item until Ms. Zuno is here to present, and a second then by Mrs. Real. If there's no further comments, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-9, report to the governing board regarding compliance with the Cal 200 settlement agreement.
And that would be Mrs. Ramirez.
Good evening, Elisa Ramirez, Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services. The Cal 200 settlement, it was originally a lawsuit filed by Driscoll, Babin, and Cal 200 to ensure that students received physical education instruction that they were entitled to. The instructional minutes that students are entitled to is 200 minutes every 10 days. So under the settlement agreement, they have a series of about 7 steps or processes that we must follow. One of them is that we need to demonstrate our class schedules that show the days, times, and duration of physical education. We have to then make sure that these schedules are posted on our front offices and on our website. The third step is that every month teachers have to report in a form that was recommended by them as to ensure the physical education had taken place. And in lieu of that, if it wasn't, they would have to make it up. And on the report, they would say when and where they made up the physical education time. The next step is the monitoring process. The administrator or the admin designee is going to collect these forms and then hold them and make sure that the teachers have signed them. Also, they have to do spot checks throughout the month and make sure that this is happening. And in their report, they have to write if there was any means, in case a teacher was not holding physical education, they have to provide a means of correction and make it part of that report. Once all this is compiled, at the end of the, they're going to submit all this paperwork at the end of the trimester. They have 30 days after the end of the trimester to report it to us. And then after we receive it, we have 30 days to report it to the governing board. The governing board then, after reviewing it and we present it to the board, we then have 21 days to submit it to either via email or regular mail to Donald Driscoll's office. The other step or the other information that's being required is that the annual notice of the physical education requirement be provided to parents via a handbook, via a school website. And then finally, that we have a physical education complaint form posted in our website. When we received this settlement agreement summary, we received it towards the end of May, and it was our last day, and the initial, this is the length of this is going to be for 3 years. So when this was provided to us, it was towards the end of May, and we didn't have enough time to send that information to principals and get the teachers on board. So for the first report that we have to submit, they wanted us to do all this process starting on the last 6 days of our school, but we ended our school on June 9th, so it wasn't enough time to get it started. So we really are out of compliance for the first period, which was just those 6 days. So in this report, what we're saying is that we were out of compliance, and to remedy these are the steps that we're going to take. So some of the steps we said is that we were going to be holding meetings with our principals, and we were going to be providing this information. During our leadership retreat, we presented this information to the teachers. We're working on the complaint forms, where right now we're getting them translated, so they should be up already. Principals are also including the annual notice in their handbooks that's going to be presented to or given to students on the first week of school. And the reporting forms for teachers were also provided to the principals, and during our back-to-school meetings with our teachers on the 20th of August, they will be presenting this information to teachers. And any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
This is just an information item, so no action required. Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. That was item I-9.
Item I-10, acceptance of proposal for scholastic literacy support for scholastic literacy for Read 180 and System 44 for Calexico Unified School District for the school year 2015-2016. And I believe we had requested that information last or 2 meetings ago.
Yes, I believe that this was on a prior board meeting agenda, and that the board had requested some supplemental information regarding the usage and effectiveness of the use of these programs throughout our schools.
Good evening. My name is Silvia Yañez, English Language Learner Coordinator. And with me, Ms. Colunga.
Christine Colunga, Director of Academic Services.
Thank you. We prepared for you a small presentation regarding the usage and the gains of our students using Scholastic's programs, which are Read 180 and System 44 for 2014-2015. Regarding the usage, we had a total of students who started using the program, or at least tested the reading inventory, and we had in September 694 students. At the end of the school year, we were able to have gains record from 603 students. On this bar graph, you can see, as you can see, I don't see, I'm sorry, we have all schools listed and the number of students who have met their goal. As part of the requirement of the program, we do have several assessments throughout the school year, but we also have goals for them that they need to be able to meet. And for that reason, we have that, we have the number of students who have met that goal. For instance, right now, I'm gonna pick on Dual. Right now, we had 71 students, 71% of the students who were enrolled in that program who met their target goal. Let me pick on Brockwood. We had 64% of the students who were in that program or using the program who met their reading goal. Bland Charles, for instance, we had 70% of the students who were enrolled in the program who met their reading goal. Next slide, Mr. Reyes, please. On this graph, what we have right here, it's exactly the number of students who were using Read 180 at the different school sites. As you can see, it's been offered and used all the way from elementary, junior high, high school, and including Aurora. And for instance, let me go to Dual, the one I believe is fifth one bar. The fifth bar, we had 91 students over there who used the program. And if you can see on the top, the red means the number of students who did not demonstrate growth. The yellow bar means growth. The light green, even though it's not very clear there, we had 21 students who made 1 year growth in reading, and we had 30 students at Dual who made progress of 2 years of growth, who showed progress of 2 years of growth, and we had 16 students who met or grew about 3 years or more using the program. That's just Dual, for instance. Let me have Rockwood. We had 110 students using the program. On the red, we have 14 students who did not demonstrate it based on the testing and the computer usage who did not demonstrate growth. We had 18 students who made some growth. The light green, we had 22 students who grew about a year or so. Then after that, we have 2 years of growth. We had a total of 29 students. In 3 years of reading, we had 27 students. The next slide, please. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. And right here on this slide, as you can see, we have listed all schools using in the district, which are all of our schools using the reading program. In each school, what we have right here in the bar, the blue is the number of students with a pre-test, a test that they take at the beginning of the school year in September, and the red graph shows the number of students with a post-test that students take in May, sometime at the end of May, beginning of June. Next slide, please. Highlights of the proposal. There's different components of the proposal. One of the proposals that we're taking to you, it's
the training. Training at all capacities. Training for our leadership group. Training for our principals, for district administration, that could help us lead our programs at the school sites and at the district level. Also, we have trainings that would help and provide support to our teachers and ongoing professional throughout the school year. And they will be receiving also training for our ASTs will be receiving training, and this time what they will be receiving, what has made the proposal a little bit different from the previous year, is that we're having a training for our ASTs that will make them a trainer of trainers, so that next year we don't have to come back and get a proposal approved so that we receive the training. This time our academic support teachers will receive that training, so whenever we have new teachers, they would have the capacity of training our own teachers as well. That's just the highlights of the leadership training, like we had mentioned. What our leaders, what our school principals will be receiving. As you have noticed, we have new principals on board, and we would like also to train them to know about the program, to help us monitor the program, so that our teachers can go with them and ask them, when they have questions about the program, our principals can be able to lead them regarding the curriculum of the program. In classroom support, we are also proposing in classroom support for our teachers. What it is we bring coaches from Scholastics, like I said, this year, so that they do in classroom support. They model lessons, they help them do their lesson structure, how the program works in the classroom, the rotations, because it has to do with rotations, look at data, place the students in the correct program that they need, data analysis, implementation of the program. And what they do, they meet throughout the school year to help them develop those lessons and help them develop that implementation and support that they need to implement the program. Ongoing professional development for the coaches, like I mentioned at the beginning, once again, this is a training just for our academic support teachers, that I had mentioned at the beginning, so that they can help us next year promote, monitor the program, give the in-classroom support that our teachers need. Also, they'll be receiving training on teaching practices, expectations, set up the goals for the students, so that when they take a test at the beginning, where they need to do to grow and make it onto the end of the school year, and what would be the expectation. This is the percentage that you need to grow on Lexile. And of course, modeling lessons to our teachers, which they actually do. And I believe that's it. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. The training of our staff, principals, teachers, and everything is included in the 86?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right.
We want to provide the training to new teachers, training to our coaches, and give them the tools to coach our own teachers, and then training to our principals and ourselves to be able to support everyone at the site.
I've used Read 180 in the past, and I know it works. And for what I see here, it's about 80%, I guess, efficiency in the system. So it is good. Are we ready to implement Read 180 again? Well, not implement, because we're already doing it. Are we ready to start Read 180 and maybe get it up to the 90s?
Definitely. That's our goal, not to the 90s, 100.
100%.
We want to make sure that all of our kids are ready, college and career ready, and one of the skills that our kids miss is the reading.
Okay.
And that's one of the skills that they lack. And this is a great support program. This is an intervention program. They get, their regular language arts, math, and everything, but this is the extra push for them.
Okay. Thanks. Ms. Rath? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have item I-10 in front of us. Mr. Calderon Jr. motions.
Second.
Ms. Real seconds the motion. Is there any more questions about this item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes 3-0. Those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-11, approval of agreement between Cal State Teach and Calexico Unified School District for the 2015-17 Internship Credential Program.
Any questions? We have this MOU with, or this agreement with Cal State Teach and our district so that we can have a mutual benefit to both agencies. We have people who are ready to start their careers in the area of education, and they need to perform intern hours, and we would benefit by having these professionals in our school district, allowing us to observe them as candidates, help in their preparation, and subsequently recruit them to our district. And so that's why we do recommend that this be approved.
Motion.
There's a motion by Mr.
Second.
Calderon, and there's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's not any more comments on this, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-12, approval of memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Consortium Teacher Induction Program for the 2015-16 school year, or
Yes.
is that what it's supposed to mean?
2015-16
school year.
And this is an agreement with ICOE to provide what we know as our bits of support. Provides our newer teachers the extra support in the classroom that they need. They have somebody observing them, providing them mentoring, and it's a $5,000 per participating teacher, so it just depends on how many teachers are participating in the program. We also have to put in an additional $1,000 per participating teacher to pay for the bits of support provider that we have within the district. This has been a program that we've had for many years throughout the county, and it is very useful to all of our newer teachers as they are developing their skill in the classroom, and we recommend approval.
So there's this item 12.
I have a question for Ms. Ambriz. How
Yes,
many
sir.
teachers do you think we are going to go through this program?
I'm going to have to defer that question to Mr. Gonzalez, as he has a more accurate count of how many we have as newer teachers being employed in our district.
This is for year 1 and year 2.
Yes, I believe so.
Good evening, trustees. Currently, as far as those having preliminary credentials that would need to go through BITSA in order for them to clear their credential and become highly qualified, which is our goal, have about 6. Yeah.
Is this only year 1 and year 2, or? Well, no, not really year 1 or year 2. It's just brand new teachers.
Correct.
Brand new. Okay.
I motion.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. on this
Second.
item, and there's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further question, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-13, approval of agreement between Cal State Teach and Calexico Unified School District for district field experience participant and student teaching.
This item is very similar to I-11. It would allow teachers to do their student teaching or any other professional that needs to finalize their field experience in our school district. Again, it allows us to observe the candidates, help in their preparation, and subsequently recruit them for employment within our own district. So we recommend that this item be approved as well.
Motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr.
Second.
There's a second by Mrs. Real. There's no further questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself. Mr. Calderon. I-14, approval of renewal of agreement between Calexico Unified School District and document tracking services for license and other services related to the single plan of student achievement.
I believe this is a web-based program that our district uses throughout our different schools in order to have our single plan for student achievement created and keep it current, updated, and ready for approval. It's a $3,000 expense district-wide at about a little over $270 per school site, and this is the fiscal impact comes through Title I funding. This is a very important program in order to keep it helps our site administrators with time efficiency in developing this plan. And we recommend it be approved.
Make a motion.
There's a motion by Mrs. Real,
Second.
and there's a second by Mr. Calderon Jr. If there's no any more further questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. All in favor of voting in favor of Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-15, approval of agreement renewal between CSUSD and Blackboard Connect for mass notification services.
And we use the Blackboard Connect in order to send out the dialer messages, et cetera, that go out in mass to the different, to all the family homes at each school site or district-wide. It's a fiscal impact of a little over $16,000, and it's addressed in our LCAP through goal number 6 for parent involvement.
Is there a cap for these services?
No,
Meaning,
I don't
that we
believe
can
so.
use?
No.
It's unlimited?
It's unlimited, yes.
Thank you. So we have item I-15 in front of us.
Motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr.
Second.
There's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further questions, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All voting in favor of Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-16, approval of data direction license agreement for the 2015-16 school year.
Data Director is a data management system or platform, as we call that, we use in order to track our student assessment, and it's used throughout our schools. It tracks either local and state assessments. It can help us develop assessments. It has a significant fiscal impact of over $36,000. We do believe that it's worthy. It's a worthy expense. We are also, though, in the process of looking at other platforms to see that if they're more beneficial to our district as well. But at this time, we do encourage the board to approve the data director, although we want you to understand that we are looking at other platforms to see that what they can offer in a similar setting. We were able to look at some different platforms at the EdTech Surge at Davis, California a few weeks ago, for those of us that attended, and there were a few that we are actually looking and analyzing if they're more cost effective and provide similar or better service than we would get with Data Director, although Data Director is a very thorough program and well worth the investment.
I see that it says renewal, which means that we have used it.
We have been using it, yes.
How long?
How long?
I will have to 6-7 years. Yeah, 6 or 7 years now.
Good evening, Board. Eduardo Perez, Coordinator of Information Technology. Yes, we have been using Data Director for the last 6-7 years. It started as a consortium with the county, and we have been using the system since then.
What, to your knowledge, have we used it properly? Is it efficient to what we do?
It helps for the different purposes that we have in our district. It offers a very easy to use interface for teachers and staff to analyze data, and besides having our student information system, and offers some features like assessments and career assessment for students also.
And is that compatible, or does it feed into our management system?
We actually feed our management student information system into Data Director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So
I just wanted to add that they're commonly used during SSTs, they're commonly used during IEPs, they're commonly used to plan for response to intervention, for data analysis meeting. So it is used frequently in different ways across all the different schools.
okay, and it's live data, meaning it's something happens one day and it's uploaded the next day.
Yeah, the synchronization is between 1 day or 2 days.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not like the principals have to wait 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's a synchronization of 1 or 2 days.
Okay.
Between the system.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further questions, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Item passes 3-0, voting in favor of Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item 17, approval of agreement renewal with Class Leasing LLC and Calexico Unified School District for relocatable classrooms.
So we have several relocatable classrooms throughout our district that have an expiring lease sometime within the month of September of 2015. And because we still need several of these classrooms to continue to provide services to our students, it is recommended that we continue to renew these leases. Currently, the fiscal impact for this renewal is a little over $68,000 that comes out of developer fees. As I shared with you in my superintendent's report earlier, if there are some of these that are empty, we may be looking at relocating them from their site where they're empty to a site where they will be used, i.e. Calexico High School needs some office space. We may need some classroom space at Enrique Camarena, and this is just one of these examples.
How many of these mobile units do we have?
You know what, there's a long list in the board.
And for how long have we had them?
We have had them for several years.
Good evening, trustees.
What is it?
I didn't hear your question, Mr. Calderon.
How many?
How many?
And how long have we had?
There's a total of 28 trailers, and to my knowledge, they're all being utilized. My recommendation for this item is to renew for the year. We have been presented with several options, which would be to have a 5-year lease, a 1-year lease. We can do the buyout, or terminate the contract at this particular point in time. I believe the contract, hold on. I believe we've had these trailers in excess of 5 years. And I recommend the 1 year because I know that the board is looking at our facilities, and we are meeting to discuss our facilities, the possibility of going out for bond, and even the possibility of having the prefab buildings. And as we develop our facilities master plan and our plan for the district on facilities, I would recommend that we lease them for 1 year until we're able to determine, can we bond, how much are we going to get, and what are the future plans of facilities at the school district. So it's my recommendation that we lease for at least 1 year at this time.
One year.
1 year. And I can share with you, for the 1 year, it's the $68,000. If we opt to go with the 5 year, you can just multiply that by 5. If we decided to purchase the trailers, it's about $447,000. And if we wanted to terminate the agreement for the 28 modules, it'd be $53,000. Because they would charge us to dismantle and then return the trailers. But we need them. So, but we need them. So I would recommend just for the 1 year as we are continuing to develop our facilities master plan and our planning for our facilities district-wide.
So this is not for new trailers. This is
No,
just
this is for the
what we
existing
have
trailers
right
that
now.
we have. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a motion.
I second it.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a second by Mrs. Real. There's
Sorry, what's the motion? I just heard motion. What is the motion?
The
motion to approve.
Thank you.
there's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further questions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-18, approval of memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Ed for College and Career Readiness Initiative.
Yes, this is the College and Career Readiness Initiative is what is formerly known as the P16 Council throughout Imperial County, and it provides a long list of of different services that are provided through the County Office of Education to the different school districts, and such as college application workshops, university admittance receptions, partnerships for higher education, the K-16 Counselor Conference, Counselor College and Readiness Workshops, data collection and reporting, principal networks, the college campus tours, parent engagement funding, etc. And so the share for Calexico Unified, and it's based on the student population, is the number of kids, it's 21,307.
And that's how we go to the higher ed week 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
And
How they bring the higher eds to our campuses, so that they bring the recruiters here, the college fairs, etc.
when they take our kids to
When
Davis.
they take our kids to Davis, this is where it goes through.
I motion to approve.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon
Second to
Jr.
approve.
There's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further questions, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion gets approved at 3-0. Members voting in favor, Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-19, approval of memorandum of understanding between the Central Elementary School District and Calexico Unified School District for participation in the STEM and kit building program.
And
Go ahead.
Sorry, this memorandum of understanding does have a significant fiscal impact. It has the STEM, which are the science, technology, engineering, and math kits. El Centro Elementary is a district that has authored these kits throughout the years, and they provide them to our district, obviously, at a cost. And this year it would be about $127,000 to provide kits in the grades of kinder through 8th grade, and in the event that we continue to need training for our staff in order to use and implement these kits in the classrooms, it would be at an additional cost of $55 per training participant. And this is what our elementary schools primarily use in the area of science and math for
Thank you, Ms.
the Common Core implementation.
Just a couple of comments on this. During my site visits, I found that some of these teachers that are using these kits were not using them, or they were being delivered late to them and so forth. And I think they were not consistent with the core or Common Core material. So what I'd like to see if we can actually go out and meet with the teachers to see if they're even worth getting them, because if they're coming in late or they're incomplete and so forth, they're not doing us any justice, or at least not to our students. So I'd like see if we can go out there and talk to the people that are out there, the teachers, to see if they're worthwhile of obtaining them, because I think we can have our teachers explore other options in the event that they don't agree. So.
And it's really low. We did hear some of the teachers' concerns, and I did speak to Marco Arellano, who's he's the director for this program. And one of the concerns was that some of these were not up to date to the NGSS standards. And what they assured us is this year they're going to start transitioning into those, and they're going to start with the kinder through third. And that's why we wanted to include, and actually the amount there, we did project some teacher training in the funding that was placed in the item, so that we could start moving in that direction. And then the following year, they're going to do the next 2 grade levels, 4th, 5th, and then 6th and on. They also do the STEM units, so our teachers, I know, really like the bugs unit at the elementary level, the rocket units, and they also did the robotics at the elementary and secondary. So it's not just the teachers' kits, it's everything that's done even throughout the summer. But we will be talking to teachers. I know that I sent out an email to our principals, but everybody was out on their vacation, letting them know that we do want some more input from the teachers.
If this was not approved today, would it delay our classrooms? Because I like to see some input from the teachers. And that's why I'm asking
We could look into it. Because I know that's the units, the teachers that are using the most updated kits, they really want to use them this year, like the rockets and the bugs. The other units, we haven't seen the new K2, but I know that there will be still concerns for the 4 through 6. And I think part of the problem is that the kits are developed on a trimester, but they're not developed to the existing curricular guide that teachers have, because we have to rotate them every trimester. So it's the teachers have to adjust to what's in the kit. And the other problem was some of the teachers were telling me, I've never been trained. I don't know what's in it. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to incorporate it.
Well, and that's the problem I have, because some of the teachers mentioned that the boxes weren't even open. They were returned to El Centro for, I guess, it's part of the process, but I'd like to see if we get some input from our teachers before, because it's $127,000. That's a pretty big.
And I can work with the schools and see.
And don't get me wrong, I'm all for science and everything else, but if we're purchasing something that we're not even using, why even bring it to Calexico?
Not a problem.
All right.
So is there a motion, Mr. Calderon?
Well, I'd like to table this for our next board meeting. And again, is it going to hinder our kids'
From using
academic? If we don't.
They do have their science core material, so the materials are out there. This is the hands-on components, the experiment.
Yes. And there was, there's no secret that I visited several campuses, and these things have come up.
Sure.
So I'd like to see the teachers get an opportunity to give us their input.
Will do.
So what's your motion, Mr. Calderon?
My motion is to table this item, and hopefully we can talk to our teachers and bring it back. And if that's what they want, we'll give them that. But I think because of the amount that we're spending, I think we should get the input from our teachers.
Will do. Thank you.
There's a motion on the table to table this item. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Al. If there's no further questions, all in favor of tabling this this item, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Voting in favor of Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., myself. That was item 19. At this time, I would like to call for a short 5-minute recess. Thank you.
What is it, 19?
Yeah, we're going to start 20.
So it's 20.
We're gonna reconvene to our meeting. Welcome back. It's 8:11. Item I-20, approval of revised board policy 5125 and administrative regulation student and student records.
And this item just is asking the board to waive the first and second reading, board policy and administrative regulation 5125 with regards to the maintenance of and management of student records. Primarily, language has been edited through Gamut for this board policy. And one of the things, there's just some language that's been edited, and then there's been 2 sections that has had additions, such as student records from social media and the contract for digital storage. This is really important at this time, for example, because our food services student information is to be maintained through a third-party student data management food services software. And so because of that, we need to make sure that this policy is in place. There is no fiscal impact. If you needed any more questions answered on that, I think Ms. Randall could answer questions on that.
I have no questions.
I don't have any questions.
No.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further questions, all in favor of this approval, please signify by say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Those voting in favor of this motion are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself. I-21, approval of resolution to sign orders for school year 2015-16.
With our recent staffing changes, it's important for our board to adopt a resolution designating the appropriate persons to sign school orders. And the difference to this order compared to last year is that it now includes Mrs. Elisa Ramirez as the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services being allowed to sign orders on behalf of the district.
I motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion on the table by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a second by Ms. Real. If there's no further questions, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All those voting in favor are Ms. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Hold on. Item 21. Okay, I-22, approval of resolution regarding the education projection account for 2015-2016 school year.
As part of our LCFF funding requirements, and according to Article 13, Section 36 of the California Constitution, the district is required to identify what it is expending funding from Resource 1400, and for Calexico Unified, it is using that 100% on teachers' salaries. It's not any new funding, but part of the local control funding formula. And if you have any further questions on that item, Mrs. Randall will address them.
Make a motion.
Mrs. Real, there's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Real.
What is the motion again? I'm sorry.
To approve.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Calderon Jr. If there's no further questions, in approval of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion, item passes 3-0. All of those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-23, consideration of adopting resolution regarding anti-discrimination. And we do have some.
May I ask a point of parliamentary inquiry before you begin?
Go ahead.
Parliamentary inquiry, are you following under Robert's Rules of Order?
We're not.
So you are not going to be going pro-con, pro-con?
We don't follow Robert's rules.
Under what board policy do you use for determining speakers?
We're just going by what it was said by the board president when she started last year.
Second inquiry, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm a former parliamentarian.
Mhm.
Can't help it. Under Robert's rules, it is a majority of the members who are present. You have a contrary board policy as to what constitutes passing on your voting. Majority of present would be
Stop.
2 of 3.
Stop. Please, on the podium so you can be recorded.
Lisa Solomon, I'm sorry, hold on. Lisa Solomon, I'm not seeing anything except.
It's recording.
Okay. Robert's Rules states that if a majority vote, if a vote is taken majority, which would be a majority of those who are in attendance. I'm asking if that is your board policy.
We have been following that. Is the whatever is if we have a quorum, which will be
Which you do have a quorum, 3 of 5.
And in order to pass any motions, it will have to be a majority.
So a majority of those present.
There will be a majority 3-0. Yes. Or 3. It will have to be 3.
In this case, it would have to be a 3-0 vote.
Is 2-1.
No, it will be a majority of the a majority. In this case, a majority of the board, which is at least 3 votes.
All right, that's what I was asking, whether you were doing a majority of the board or a majority of those present.
No, I'm sorry. I misconstrued your question. It's the majority of the board, which is 3 votes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go back to we have some persons that wanted to hold on until this item came about, and the first person was Raul Ureña.
Mr. Calderon, if I may
Sure.
add, Ms. Solomon, I think in answer to one of the questions that didn't get answered as to how the speakers are selected, our board president instituted a while back that it's in the order that the slips are received. And so when the slips come in, they're numbered, and so that's the order that we tend to follow.
And I apologize for not answering that question, but that's why you saw me go like this because as they.
Actually, I didn't pay attention
Okay.
to what you were doing with the slips. so-
Okay, yes. So as they were coming in, I was putting them like this. So now,
Thank you very much.
turn them around. Mr. Ureña, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Raul Ureña, Calexico graduate. Board, I rise in favor of the proposed resolution. I've come up to this board for years to speak about the oppressive barriers that contain our Bulldog pride, our students. More than being physically locked into campus, I worry about them being locked in without any legitimate mechanism for reporting discrimination, for addressing causes of psychological distress, or for comprehensively addressing issues like drug use and abuse using holistic resources. In the year that I've been a part of the No Margins community, a group dedicated to welcoming each and every student into an inclusive safe zone, I have personally witnessed the benefits of having a safe space where students can express themselves. Those connections we make with people who may or may not share our perspective is an aspect that is duly highlighted as an integral part of higher education. We would be foolish if we labeled this as dangerous. What is very dangerous is this board's defiant and stubborn refusal to look inward and accept progressive policy changes that provide protections for all our students. Mark Ramirez and I have come up to this board to present the most recent bullying statistics from Calexico schools conducted by the state of California. And the state of California found that over 20% of your students across your secondary schools reported being harassed or bullied on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. Over 30% reported being harassed or bullied for any other reason. This isn't cute. This isn't a game. Truancy, on behalf of any board member on this matter, is neglecting equality and safety for all our students. How many more transgendered students have to commit suicide before we empower them to reach out to their school with confidence when they face hell? How many more transgender students have to commit suicide before Ciro Calderon, a counselor, stops publicly mocking the courage of Caitlyn Jenner? How many more days of hurtful bullying do students with disabilities have to live before we recognize that they have just as much potential as anyone to be a productive member of society? How many more days before we take them out of that lonely, trailering Calexico High School and integrate them to be a part of our high school, of our Bulldog pride? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ureña. Okay, the next person that wanted to wait until this item came up is Lisa Solomon.
My God, we still have no smoking signs on podiums? Sorry, I'm showing my age. My name is Lisa Solomon. I speak not for myself, but for those without voice, those who have fought for their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equality of opportunity, their right to be educated. These words were part of the acceptance speech for Nobel Peace Prize recipient Malala Yousafzai. I'm an educator at Imperial Valley College, and I have daily contact with students from all Imperial Valley schools. Surveys done there by and of students shows that the bullying and harassment continues and follows the targeted students to IVC. The bullies and the bullied, the harassers and the harassed. It doesn't really matter why. What matters is that it continues. This affects these bullied students' ability to learn, to trust, and to grow. It is the responsibility of all of us, as parents, educators, counselors, support staff, and trustees, to ensure that all of our students receive a quality education in a safe environment. Not just the perfect children, or the rich children, or the white children, or the male children, or the A students, but all of them. School is not just a place to learn new things, but a place where we, all of us, help all of them become intelligent, thoughtful, productive citizens who want to willingly contribute to their families and our society. To say that this resolution is redundant or that the issues noted within its paragraphs are already covered by law, I share the words of former Congressman Tim Holden. He said, "The Holocaust illustrates the consequences of prejudice, racism, and stereotyping on a society. It forces us to examine the responsibilities of citizenship and confront the powerful ramifications of indifference and inaction." Being a trustee is not always easy. No one included that word in the job description. Being a trustee means that you are entrusted with the well-being of the students who attend your schools, all of them. In closing, I would like to share a statement made by Susan B. Anthony during the effort to gain the right to vote for women, all women, regardless of race. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputation and social standing, never can bring about a reform. Those who are really in earnest must be willing to be anything or nothing in the world's estimation, and publicly and privately, in season and out, avow their sympathy with despised and persecuted ideas and their advocates, and bear the consequences. Your students are asking you to not be those cautious, careful people. I ask you to adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Solomon. The next on the list is Victoria Medina.
My name is Victoria Medina, and mostly everybody knows me by Susie, my nickname. I'm a teacher at Calexico High School, and I'm very proud of Raul. He was my student in academic decathlon. He's my decathlete, ex-decathlete. I'm proud of him. I'm up here to present this important passage. The Education Code states, and let's focus on the, excuse me, could you pull up the anti-discrimination policy or resolution? Thank you, Mr. Reyes. First off, the paragraphs. Whereas 2, whereas 1, students, many students, families, and employees experience discrimination in Imperial County, directly related to gender identity. This is focused through ICOE, the most recent passage of the same state federal law. There's no difference. 2, in the Education Code, there is an urgent need to prevent and respond to acts of violence and bias-related incidences that are occurring, increasing rate in California's public schools. That's in paragraph 2. Similar to that, public funded schools. Whereas 3, there is an urgent need to teach and inform pupils in public schools about their rights, but also guaranteed by the federal and state constitutions. Yes. So in these incidences, and many people bringing up statistics, etc., well, we really don't have statistics of how many students have been bullied at Rockwood, at Cesar Chavez, at Dual, possibly. I don't know. Maybe we do have the numbers, statistics. But in essence, our administrators, they're doing their job. Mr. Pesquera was my administrator last year, and if we had complaints or if anybody heard about bullying, it was adhered to. In fact, we had staff meetings about bullying. We put posters in our classrooms. We worked with our students. We noted that. We checked. We needed to see that. As teachers, that's our job. It's our job. Lastly, now therefore be resolved as we go to section 2807 on the Ed Code. Gender means sex and includes a person's gender, identity, and gender expression. This is, of course, on that third paragraph. Or, now therefore, it be resolved. My objective here is just to bring this up to you. It's the same thing. So it is covered here. All of these goals are accepted
Can we wrap it up,
under
please?
this Ed Code. This is just what I want to bring with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next on the list on I-23 is Adria Lopez.
Good evening, board members, members of the community, administrators. I would like to lay down some facts. First of all, this resolution in question has already been, first fact, it has already been approved at the Imperial County level on April 13, 2015. It is the exact same resolution, and it already states that it's binding school districts, let me see there, school districts, and the Imperial County Office of Education and local public agency. Therefore, it is redundant. As Mr. Hawk and Ms. Medina already quoted, there is also Ed Code that already includes anti-discrimination laws. And at our level, at the Calexico Unified School District, we have our board policy 0410, which is non-discrimination in district programs and activities. And I will quote, the Board of Education is committed to equal opportunity for all individuals in education. District programs and activities shall be free from discrimination based on gender, sex, race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, ethnic group, identification, marital or parental status, physical or mental disability, sexual orientation, or the perception of one or more of such characteristics. And it goes on. The legal documents needed to combat discrimination are in place. This resolution that is being proposed today make us question why it is so persistent, or the need to have it approved at the Calexico Unified School District level. And since we have all the legal documents in place. Now let us focus our attention on the document in question. This resolution includes open, vague, subjective, emotional-based terms such as targeted with personal hate. If we are going to be accepting a document with this type of language, we are opening a can of worms to subjective thinking and subjective judging. This definitely can't be accepted as is. I will take just one second there. Other subjective terms used is seek to empower. Those who experience discrimination, the district will seek to empower them. I will ask, who will be doing the empowering? It is very important that a legal document such as this resolution includes defined information as to who will be providing that type of empowering. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. The next in line was Steven Mireles for I-23. Steven Mireles.
Oops. Let me just get organized real quick. All right. Hi there. My name is Steven Mireles. Thank you for having me here today. I am here in the capacity of as the vice chair for the Imperial Valley LGBT Resource Center. I'm also a graduate of the Imperial High School, 2007, Go Tigers, but I also love you guys here in Calexico as well. I had the honor of going to UC Berkeley and graduating there, and I'm also a proud board member of the Imperial Valley Republican Party. Today I wanted to talk to you in favor of the resolution today, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up to the attention of the board is the vision of Calexico High School. The vision states that we will create academic pathways and supportive environments that empowers our students to realize their potential and dreams. Like all visions that we implement, they're incomplete in many different ways, and in order for us to fulfill that vision, we have to constantly change the way that we implement our policies, implement the way we think about subjects, and implement the ways that we're going to be able to empower our students, the ways that we're going to be able to protect our students. Today I saw a great presentation on the Project LEAD, and I think that it sounds like an awesome project, and I'm so happy that you guys are going to be implementing it here in Calexico. One of the things that it talked about was they want to empower children through this program to be able to fight against bullying, to be able to understand the legal processes, and to be able to enter into our society and live successful lives. I think that's a great program. I think that is a wonderful step for Calexico to move forward with. But I also wanted to say that another great step that you guys can take is approving this resolution today. It was brought up earlier by Raul that we see that bullying within the school districts, that studies that were performed here show that there was 20% of students, your students, that are saying that they're being bullied. And they're being bullied for specific reasons, for gender identity, for gender expression, sexual orientation, race, religion, ethnicity, or physical and mental disability. This is a striking statistic. And I think that if you're looking to try and combat this with the LEAD project, you should also look to combat that, to complete that vision that Calexico is here to complete today as much as possible. And by passing the resolution, I think you can do that. Again, I am here because I've been blessed by where I've grown up and where I've lived. But what I have seen in the Imperial Valley is that we need these protections. And certainly it's been brought up by certain individuals that these protections almost already exist, that there's resolutions that have already been passed, which makes it curious to think that it would be controversial for this board to take a position on that. So I urge that you vote in favor of this, to protect the children and to complete the vision that you are already moving forward to complete in other areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mireles. Next is for I-23, Rosa Diaz. Rosa.
Hello, I am the founder of the Abide LGBT Life group, which is a Christian ministry that reaches out to gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transsexuals seeking to be a part of the religious community. Many who come to the Abide Life group have shared sad stories of how they have been excluded from and were treated differently or made to feel unwanted in their church when they came out to their priest or their pastor. Discrimination is a serious problem because it makes one feel uncomfortable, ashamed, excluded, and threatened. We say that everyone has the right to be treated fairly and respectfully. But what if the majority feels that you don't belong? What if it is okay to discriminate against someone because they make you feel uncomfortable, or because someone taught you that they are a disgrace or an abomination, or that they are repulsive? Repulsive because of who they are, or repulsive because of what you think they are? I am a graduate of the Brawley Union High School class of 1978. Homosexuality was not spoken of in the schools, but we knew that there were homosexuals in our school. I remember a young man who was very effeminate and was constantly being suspended from school for fighting. He was feisty. He fought constantly because there was no one else there to defend him, not a teacher or a counselor or a school official. Many turned their backs when they witnessed the harassment. His counselor advised him that in order for the harassment to stop, he needed to change. In other words, he brought it on himself and no one else could do anything about it. Here we are almost 4 decades later, and I still have not heard of a safe zone in schools where a student can find protection if he or she identifies as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer. I've yet to know of a program that trains teachers, counselors, or school staff on gay issues, on gender identity, sexual identity, gender bias, etc. It is time for our schools to provide a safe zone for those who identify as LGBTQ, a place where a school staff member is savvy about LGBTQ issues and will stand up for LGBTQ students. Same-sex marriage is lawful. Our schools are going to have more and more students from same-sex parent homes. What is your school doing to make sure that these children are treated equally? By passing this resolution, you acknowledge that a policy that protects a student who identifies as LGBTQ or have parents who are LGBTQ is very vital. By passing this resolution, you help reduce the repulsion that many still have towards gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgenders and queers. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Next on the list on I-23 is Jimmy Garcia.
I would like to decline.
I'm sorry?
I would like to decline.
Oh, you would like to decline?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Decline. Just here. The next on the list on I-23 is Linda Thomas.
Hello, my name is Linda Thomas. I thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I hear a lot of conversation talking about how can I identify who's empowering on the resolution. Well, when we send our kids to school, who are we here to have empower them? The teachers, the principal, everybody that they come, the janitor. Everybody that they come into contact with is in charge of empowering our children. So if I send my kid to this school and I find out that they're being bullied, I expect you to do the same as you would do with any other student. And I also expect that we would not even be talking about this if it was your kid. There's a kid here that's overweight and he's being teased every day. We would do something about that. So why is it that we have to continually fight for something that affects a child? It doesn't matter if it's just one. If it affects them and you're here to make a difference, that's your job. That's what we hire teachers to do, is to help make our kids feel safe so that when they leave school, they can hold their heads up, they can talk with confidence. If it was your child and somebody said, oh, well, we're not doing the same for women anymore, you'd be up here, oh, we've got laws of discrimination. Yes, but we only going to put them in homemaking class. There no longer can be scientists, doctors. This is the same thing. We find a different group of people to discriminate against. So yes, we'll move on to the next group and the next group. So until it hits your group, it's not important. We have to stand up for every group that's being affected, because it doesn't always have to be them. When it becomes you, then it's important. So I just want that you to take into consideration that every child is important and that this resolution be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And last but not least, on I-23, Mark Ramirez.
I wanted to touch on some of the things I've heard today. I wanted to, so we had presented to you about the California Healthy Kids Survey, a survey that your all students, well not all students, but students at your school were forced to take. I think Ms. Umdi said that there was about 9,000 students. If you would take 20% of 9,000 students, that's 1,800 students who would have reported, right, that they experienced some sort of bullying or discrimination. So we have all of these ed codes that were brought up, right, that are there in place and that are obviously not being effective or being used. We are entrusting teachers to make these, or our schools, to make sure that these things don't happen, but students are saying otherwise. There needs to be something that happens to address those things. Someone had mentioned that the wording's vague. While that might be true, that kind of works in your favor, because the point of this resolution was really to empower students, and that empowerment is through creating, you deciding what that mechanism is of empowering your students. So that sort of vagueness works in your favor, because you would get to decide then how you would empower those students. It would be kind of ridiculous to say, oh, well, those things are already in place. Why wouldn't you then want to at least look at this resolution? To say also that, you know, if ICU adopted, it's already in all schools. That's untrue. ICU adopted a resolution doesn't mean that it's at every school district. It simply says that it endorses you if you choose to adopt that also. Also, it would, if you don't vote on this today, I would really encourage you to at least table it for discussion, to really examine the resolution and understand what it would mean to undertake voting yes or no on it, so that you really know what you're saying yes or no to, and the students understand your position, right, on 20% of them saying that they experience bullying at your school. And here's something that would address and give them a mechanism. That's what, when it says empower, give them a mechanism to address that discrimination, that bullying that they have. And I don't care that it's gay students. I'm talking about all students. So someone earlier brought up the ed code. They didn't mention students with disabilities. We're talking about everybody. And those are all parts of the federal recognized groups. And we're also added people who based on gender expression and gender identity, which is not sexual orientation. That's a different thing. And that's all I wanted to say. Mr.
Ramirez, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. The reason that hold on, don't worry about it. At 154, you mentioned something. You said something that nobody else had said. You mentioned, well, I think it was 154 on the clock. You said something that something needs to happen. You said something needs, meaning there needs to be an action, right? So just so you know, something is going to happen. Okay, well, something that I want to happen, that I want it to happen. Okay, just so you know. And you were talking, I didn't put down the time, but you also talked about to table it for a different time. To really discuss it and look at it. Just so you know, that under our rules right now, under our bylaws, any member of the community, anytime you bring an item to us, as long as it's under our jurisdiction, we can bring it back. Okay, something that I don't think it would happen under the Robert's Rules of Order. Okay, so anytime that you want to put, let's say, this on the table, and you come to any of us, we have to convey the message and we have to put it on the agenda. Okay, so just so you know, but something will happen. Okay, just so you know.
I just wanted to make it clear, this isn't my thing. I'm here to support Raul because he's a student of this school, and he was really the architect of this, because he's the person who has the personal background, who has the experience to have to want to create this for the school district to adopt. So I just wanted to make that clear for everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Thank you.
Is that it? So, excuse me. Okay, so we have in front of us I-23, consideration of adoption of adopting resolution regarding anti-discrimination. Is there a motion?
I motion to deny the request for the resolution.
There is a motion to deny the request or of the motion. Huh? To deny the request of the resolution. Okay. So, okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'm going to second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. and we have a second by Mrs. Real. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving this motion as stated by Mr. Calderon Jr., as signified by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All those voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. I-24, approval of certificated employment report. Is there a
It was to specify the hours.
No, that's in the classified. Okay, so approval certificate employment report. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion by Mrs. Real to approve.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Calderon Jr. If there's no more discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All voting in favor of Ms. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Item I-25, approval of classified employment report. Remember. Yes.
That's the one that had to specify the hours. Yeah, that's the one that specified that.
Okay.
Doesn't leave a blank check.
So I will make. Did you make the motion already?
No.
I will make the motion to approve the classified employment report with number 5, Erica Silva, and to not to exceed, which is currently working 6 hours, and not to exceed 8 hours per day. So that's a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second? Or second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by myself, Mr. Calderon. There's a second by Ms. Real? Who made the motion? By Ms. Real?
Yes, second.
Second.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 3-0. All voting in favor are Ms. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. Letter J, we already convened to closed session, so we will not be going into closed session. Letter K, we convened to open session. We already did that. Letter L, announcement of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session. Letter M, adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
There's a motion by Mrs. Real to adjourn.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Calderon Jr. to adjourn. If there's no further questions, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. All voting in favor are Mrs. Real, Mr. Calderon Jr., and myself, Mr. Calderon. This meeting is adjourned.